The faucet squeaked as I turned it off, drying my hands on the dish towel still damp from rinsing Carter's dinner plates. The kitchen smelled faintly of garlic and rice he had asked for. Stir-fry earlier said it reminded him of college. I smiled at the thought until I turned around and saw him standing by the front door holding my coat. "You and your little zoo can go," he said, his voice flat. "You don't belong here anymore." I stared at him. He didn't blink. At first I thought it was a joke. We'd had tense moments, sure, but never anything close to this. "Carter," I said gently, "what are you talking about?" Then I saw Sydney. She was at the base of the stairs, arms crossed, her mouth a tight line. Behind her sat one of my old suitcases. My name was still on the tag. "I packed your essentials," she said, not even looking at me. The hallway was too quiet. Murphy whined softly from behind my legs. Cleo stood on the windowsill, tail twitching, watching. "You can't be serious," I whispered. Carter opened the door. Rain had just started, light but cold. He stepped aside. I didn't move. "You said you wanted quiet," he muttered. "Now you'll have it." I didn't remember grabbing the leash or the cat carrier. But I must have, because the next moment I was standing outside, the weight of Murphy's body pressing against my leg, Toby already soaked tail down. The door shut behind me. I heard the deadbolt click. I stood on the porch for a full minute before stepping into the rain. Cleo meowed once, low and confused. By the time I reached the driveway, my sweater clung to my skin and my shoes squelched with every step. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I opened the car door, ushered them inside, and sat behind the wheel. I didn't know where I was going yet. I only knew I wasn't coming back here. The motel clerk didn't look up when I asked if they allowed pets. He just slid a key across the counter, muttered something about an extra fee, and pointed down the hall. "Room 106. Second door on the left." The lights buzzed when I flipped the switch. The carpet smelled faintly of mildew, but it was warm, and the door locked behind me. That was enough. I laid out 4 bowls using the motel's ice bucket and the 2 plastic cups from the bathroom. I broke the sandwich I bought at the gas station into pieces, setting small bites in each one. Murphy ate quickly. Toby sniffed and waited for permission even now. Cleo, of course, turned up her nose until I tore the bread into strips. I sat on the edge of the bed, wet clothes draped over a chair. My phone screen glowed as I typed, "Carter, I don't understand. Please call me." The message sent. No reply, no dots. Just the quiet buzz of the heater and Cleo's tail flicking against my thigh. I left the lamp on overnight, not because I was scared, but because I wasn't sure what darkness would feel like now that I no longer had a home. At dawn, I dressed in yesterday's clothes and drove slowly through the thinning mist past the edge of town toward Layla's place. She opened the door in boots and flannel hair still in rollers and didn't ask a single thing. She just stepped aside, pulled a key from a hook, and said, "The back cabin's clean. Blankets are in the chest." I didn't say thank you out loud. I just nodded and carried my things across the gravel path to the cabin, tucked behind the barn. Inside, I placed the bowls again. The same sandwich scraps, now dry. Cleo jumped onto the couch and curled into a perfect coil against my hip. Her breath was soft, her warmth familiar. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and reached for my phone again. This time, I called Dr. Weston. I waited until the sun rose high enough to cut through the fog clinging to the barn roof before dialing Dr. Weston's number. His voice came through on the second ring, warm but cautious. "Iralia," he said, "I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I know," I replied. I've had a bit of a change in circumstances. I need to update some information." Microchip records for Murphy, Toby, and Cleo. He didn't say anything for a second. I could hear papers shuffling in the background, the soft murmur of a receptionist's voice. "You're moving?" he asked. "Temporarily," I said. somewhere quieter. Still silence. I just need to make sure their records reflect the new address. I'm not sure how long I'll be here. He cleared his throat. You're still their primary contact. That won't change unless you request it. Good, I said. That's all I needed. But just as I was about to say goodbye, he stopped me. Irelia, he said slowly. Check their collars. I frowned. Their collars? Yes. The tags. Mason had something done to them before everything happened. I blinked. They've worn those same tags for years. I know. Just look closely, he said. Turn them over. He had something engraved. I wasn't sure when or if you'd ever need to see it, but now feels like the right time. I felt the phone grow heavier in my hand. Why would he do that? I asked. I think he wanted you to find something only when you needed it. I looked over at the couch. Cleo lay curled into herself again, tail twitching. Toby sat by the window watching the wind move through the grass. Murphy was asleep at my feet, his collar slightly askew. I ended the call, set the phone down, and crouched next to him. My fingers brushed the metal tag I'd touched 100 times before, but this time I turned it over. And then I saw it. I sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, the morning light spilling across the rug like it had been waiting with me. Murphy rested his head on my knee, eyes still heavy with sleep. Toby sat close, sensing something in my breath. Cleo watched from the armrest tail, flicking with quiet curiosity. I lifted Murphy's tag again and turned it over this time with intention. The usual engraving was there, his name, my old address, the clinic's number. But just beneath the surface, under the curved edge of the metal, something caught the light. It wasn't just wear. It was a second plate. I slipped a fingernail under it and tilted the tag slightly. The plate moved barely, and there etched in precise, careful lines were 3 things: the name of a bank I recognized from Mason's business days, a string of numbers that looked like an account or trust ID, and beneath that, a 6-digit passcode. I moved to Toby next. Same hidden plate, same layout, different ID, same bank. Then Cleo hers too, tucked behind the regular tag like a secret waiting to be asked for. I sat back. My breath shallow, my hands trembling slightly. These weren't just old pet tags. They were markers. Intentional, deliberate, left for me like breadcrumbs. I called Dr. Weston again. He answered before the second ring. They're here, I said softly. Just like you said. Bank name, trust number. All of it. He exhaled, long and audible. He did it then. I wasn't sure if he went through with it. What is it? I asked. A trust, he said. Months before Mason passed, he created a care fund in each of their names for veterinary costs, housing long-term care. But the trustee, that's you, Irelia. My fingers curled around Murphy's collar. He didn't want it to be touched by Carter or anyone else. He asked me to stay quiet unless you found the tags. It was the only instruction. I closed my eyes and sat still for a long time. When I opened them again, I knew what I had to do next. The office hadn't changed. Same faded posters of smiling Labradors, same scent of antiseptic and lavender, still trying to cover the metallic tang of fur and fear. Dr. Weston met me at the back entrance away from the waiting room. He had the file already laid out. A thick manila folder with my name on a tab in Mason's handwriting. That alone stopped me for a moment. I'll walk you through it, Weston said gently, pulling out the first page. The trust had been formed 9 months before Mason died. 3 separate funds under one master trust, Murphy, Toby, Cleo. Each with identical terms. Each with long-term care provisions, emergency medical housing allowances, and a final clause allowing the trustee to act as guardian and manager of the funds in perpetuity. And the trustee was me. I flipped through the paperwork slowly. There were no loopholes, no vague language. It was watertight. shielded from probate from Carter, from creditors or curious relatives, invisible by design. He did this quietly, Weston said. Didn't even run it through his usual lawyer. Said he wanted it off the radar. I signed the confirmation page with steady hands. By the time I left, the weight in my chest had shifted. Not gone, but rearranged. No one had chosen me in a long time? Not like this. I drove back with the windows cracked, letting in the wind. The collar tags clinked softly from the passenger seat, where the pets sat calm and unaware of the power stitched into their names. Mason had always said, love was a form of foresight. I thought he meant remembering birthdays. I never imagined he meant this. When I pulled up to Layla's barn, the sun had started its slow slide behind the hills. I didn't go inside right away. I just stood at the fence for a while, fingers brushing against Murphy's tag in my coat pocket. It still felt unreal, but real or not, I had something now that Carter couldn't touch. And I knew exactly who to call next. Dr. Weston handed me the box without a word. It was smaller than I expected, just a plain metal storage tin, the kind Mason used to keep old receipts and screws in. There was a sticker on top, worn at the edges with my name in his handwriting. Nothing else. I've kept it sealed, Weston said quietly. He dropped it off a few weeks before he passed. Said you'd come for it when it was time. I nodded, unsure what to say. I held the box in both hands like it might vanish if I blinked too long. Back at the cabin, I set it on the kitchen table and opened the lid. On top was a small envelope, ivory-colored and thick. My name again. Just that. No greeting, no date. I slid a finger under the flap and unfolded the letter inside. His writing was clear. Unshaken. Irilia, if you're reading this, then I did what I needed to. I couldn't stop Carter's change of heart, no matter how much I wanted to believe it was just a phase. I saw the way he looked at you those last few months. Not like a son, like someone who'd already decided you were less useful than you used to be. I knew you wouldn't say anything, that you'd keep giving. That's who you are. But I couldn't let you give yourself away completely. So I did the one thing I knew how to do. I made it. So you wouldn't have to ask anyone for permission to stay upright. You were always the one who loved first quietly and best, especially when no one noticed. This time, I noticed. At the bottom, just one final line. Let them follow the money. You follow what matters. I sat with the letter in my lap, the silence deep and unbroken. The pets lay near my feet as if they knew something had shifted. Later that night, I folded the letter and placed it back in the box. And in the morning, I made an appointment with an attorney. I heard the crunch of tires on gravel before I saw the car. Carter's truck, same dent in the side, same impatience in how he slammed the door. He didn't knock, just came around the side of the barn like he still owned every place I stood. Hey, he said like nothing had happened. Just wanted to check if you left anything behind. Sydney's organizing things and thought maybe there was stuff we could donate. He said donate like it was a favor. I have what I need, I said, brushing hay from my sleeves. He glanced over my shoulder toward the cabin. Cleo was in the window, watching him like a queen watching a jester. He laughed sharp and short. So this is where you ended up with the mutts and the cat. This is what you chose instead of, I don't know, a real family? I didn't answer. Toby padded up beside me and sat quietly. Murphy stayed in the shade behind the fence. I rested a hand on Toby's head, and he leaned into it without looking at Carter. You always did care more about them than people, he added. His voice had that edge again, the one that used to sneak out when he was tired or embarrassed. Now it was just there all the time. I stayed quiet. That silence used to unsettle him. Now he seemed to expect it. He left without waiting for anything more, muttering something about a wasted drive. The truck peeled out the same way it came in. Layla appeared a moment later, wiping her hands on a towel. He really just said that she asked. I nodded. You going to tell him, she said. I looked out over the field. The clinic paperwork was nearly done. The trust was active. The cabin was being prepped for more than just quiet living. No, I said. She didn't press me. Later that night, I opened the file from the attorney and placed it next to the letter Mason had written. The numbers were real. The protections were in place. The next step was mine to take. The attorney's office was plain, no plaques, no leather chairs, just clean lines and quiet confidence. That's what I wanted. No one flashy. Just someone who could make things move the way Mason had intended. It took 3 meetings and a mountain of paperwork to activate the trust's purpose clause. But once it was done, it was real. The money was no longer sitting quietly in some bank's corner. It was working. I filed the paperwork for the nonprofit under Mason's name. Not because I needed to hang on to him, but because he had done the hardest part believing in me when I didn't think I'd need it. The clinic wouldn't be big. Just a few rooms in a converted cottage near the edge of town, tucked between a bakery and an old post office. But it would be enough. Enough for animals who needed care. Enough for people who couldn't afford to say yes when their dog limped or their cat stopped eating. Murphy, Toby, and Cleo became the first faces on the flyers. Layla took the pictures. She said they looked like a family portrait. I suppose in a way they were. Back at the cabin, Layla and I scrubbed the walls and painted over the faded wallpaper. We set up soft lighting, a few chairs, a shelf with clean blankets. No exam tables, this room was just for talking, listening, helping people feel like they had a choice. By the time we finished, the space felt different, not like something temporary, like something claimed. On the first afternoon, a boy about 9 years old came in holding a shoebox. Inside was a kitten, all ears and panic. His mother looked tired, but hopeful. We sat together on the worn couch. I listened to their story. No one asked for paperwork. No one turned them away. Cleo stayed in the window, blinking slowly, her tail wrapped around her feet, like she already belonged to the place. When they left, I stood at the door and watched the boy carry the box with both hands, carefully, like something holy. The call came late in the evening, just after I had fed the dogs and turned down the lights. My phone buzzed twice before I saw his name flash across the screen. Carter. I let it ring once more before I answered. Mom, he said, voice tight, breath clipped. I need your help. There was no greeting, no apology, just urgency. He launched into it, how the refinancing fell through, how the lender pulled out at the last minute, how the bank was threatening foreclosure unless they found a co-signer by Monday. Sydney's parents had declined. Mine, he reminded me, was the only signature that could fix everything. I just need you to help like always, he said. Just sign. They'll never come after you. It's just on paper. I stood in the doorway of the cabin, the night air cool against my skin. The porch light buzzed quietly above me. I had stood in too many kitchens, too many hospital rooms, too many bank offices saying yes because I couldn't imagine saying anything else. This time, I didn't rush to fill the silence. I can't, Carter, I said. Finally. I'm not part of that house anymore. There was a pause on the line. I imagined his jaw tightening. He had never done well with silence when it came from me. What's that supposed to mean? He asked. I looked over at Murphy, snoring softly on his side. At Cleo, who had claimed the top shelf of the bookcase as her throne. It means what it sounds like, I said. Calmly. You're really going to let us lose the house? He snapped. I didn't answer. Not with anger. Not with explanation. Just quiet. Eventually, he hung up. I stood there for a moment, letting the stillness settle around me like a shawl I hadn't worn in years. The next morning, I walked to the edge of the field behind the barn. The soil was soft, the grass taller than it had been when I arrived. The new clinic opened in 3 days. The ribbon fluttered in the breeze, a soft green line stretched across the wooden gate. Layla held one end, Dr. Weston the other. I stood between them, scissors in hand, the crowd small but warm. Volunteers, neighbors, a few curious faces from town. Nothing loud, nothing forced, just enough. When the ribbon fell, people clapped politely. Someone brought a tray of cookies. A child ran up to Murphy arms wide. He wagged once and leaned into the hug like he'd trained for it. Inside, the space felt like something we'd grown, not built. The rooms were clean, the light gentle. The smell of paint had faded into something soft and herbal. A basket of blankets sat near the door. Cleo circled it once, then promptly laid claim. That night, I slept soundly. The cabin no longer felt like a stopover. It breathed with me. The porch light stayed on not as a signal for return, but as a marker of presence. I was here. I had stayed. Each pet had a new collar now. The old ones with their hidden secrets I kept in a small box by my bed. The new ones were plain, clean, each engraved with a single word, home. On Sunday afternoon, a couple brought in a stray, a skinny, scrappy thing with matted fur and bright, shaking eyes. They'd found her near a gas station and named her Junebug. She needed fluids rest and a safe place to start again. They came back 2 days later after we cleaned her up. Asked if they could keep her. I said yes before they finished the sentence. I watched them walk down the gravel path with Junebug in a towel-wrapped bundle. The woman whispered something to the dog. The man opened the car door like he was lifting glass. For once, there was no sting in letting go. No ache. Just space made for something else to bloom. I stood on the steps, hands in my pockets, as Murphy nudged the door open behind me. Inside, Cleo blinked lazily. Toby thumped his tail once against the floor, and I walked back in quietly to stay.